It is crazy to think that we are now entered into week 11 of fantasy hockey. Hopefully your season's gone very well, and let me know in the comment section below how your season has turned out so far, your top performers, and your current record across all of your leagues. For me, it's been hit or miss, but some leagues I'm doing well, some leagues I'm still struggling in, but the points for are there. For this video, guys, there's been a lot of changes over the last week. Some notable players have been injured and placed on IR, but luckily for us, we can get an early jump on the replacement players that can hopefully give us some short or long-term value for this fantasy season. My name's Mike, and let's jump into the video. With the unfortunate news that Kyle Connor is now out for 6 to 8 weeks after a really scary injury on a hit from Ryan Strome. I was really surprised to see he didn't get suspended for that, but knee on knees most of the time are not intentional. But for right now, this opens the door for hopefully Nikolaj Ehlers to step into a line 1 power play 1 role, which we've wanted to see from him for years. We've been all waiting for the Nikolaj Ehlers breakout. I mentioned him in just my last video, but for right now, this is the time that you need to be looking to roster him. He's at just 35% over on Yahoo, meaning in 12 to 14 plus team leagues, he's likely still available on your free agency, or you can even make a move to trade for him. Over the last 10 games, he's played 16 minutes and 51 seconds in a line 1 power play 1 role, has 11 points, 27 shots on goal, and 50 shot attempts. Throughout his entire career, Ehlers has been an elite shot volume type player, a 10 plus shot per 60 player, and a 3 plus point per 60 player. He just needs to get the minutes, and that's all we've been waiting for with him. The biggest thing with Ehlers is the deployment. There's times where he'll be playing 11 minutes, and there's games where he'll be playing 20 plus. And right now, they've kind of, with the injuries, have forced their hand to play Ehlers in a much more leveraged role on a line 1 power play 1 role, which means he's going to be getting more minutes. Since his movement to power play 1 line 1 with Connor out, he played 20 minutes and then played 17 minutes. So that's exactly what we want to be seeing from a guy who has historically elite per 60 rates. Nikolaj Ehlers is definitely a guy I want to be looking to roster in all 12 plus team leagues. I like his position eligibility, and I like the upside that we see each and every year, and even more this season now that he's actually been pretty healthy. Another similar player that's going to be benefiting from the injury of Kyle Connor is Gabe Vilardi of the Winnipeg Jets. So if Nikolaj Ehlers is owned, which he may be in some of those competitive 12 plus team leagues, Gabe Vilardi is definitely the next best option on the Winnipeg Jets to fill in a much more leveraged role, and he's been extremely good since he's joined the Winnipeg Jets this season. We just haven't seen enough health from him. So prior to injury, he was playing around 20 minutes per night, and since his return, we have still seen that very high average time on ice, and it should only continue to go up now with the injury to Kyle Connor. Gabe Vilardi is now skating alongside Ehlers and Scheifele on the top line and the top power play unit, and his minutes are up to 17 minutes and 40 seconds per night. I did take away the one game that he missed where he was injured in the first period, played just 2 minutes, and on most sites that does account for his total time on ice, but because he left the game, I took it out, and he's about playing at 1740 per night, which is very strong for any forward. So far this season, 9.0 shots per 60, a plus 1.6 increase from last season, and a 13.56 shot attempt per 60 rate, which is an increase of plus 1.02 from last year. That's the thing you want to see when players get put into a more leverage role and play more minutes. Can they sustain a very strong shot rate? Anything above 8 is very good, and that's what we're seeing from Gabe Vilardi. He had a mini breakout season last year where he scored 23 goals and 41 points. He was off to one of the hottest starts I've seen of any player in the last little bit, especially from a guy that wasn't being drafted. And so far this season, 10 games played, 7 points, 24 shots on goal, and 4 hits. That does include 1 injured game played, so 7 points in 10 games that he's played the full 60 minutes of. Again, mini breakout in 2022, hopefully to see more from a guy in a much more leveraged role. Big minutes, good deployment, equals more opportunity and the potential for a breakout. At 16% rostered, a lot of people were rostered him prior to injury, but now that he's back playing good minutes in a good role, this is the perfect time to add Gabe Vilardi. At the time of recording, just 36% of you are subscribed to the channel, so if you've enjoyed the content so far, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all the content that we're going to be pumping out for the rest of the season. In addition, we have updated our projections for the rest of the season. If you're interested in gaining access to that, head on over to our Patreon. The link will be in the description. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment in this video or simply message me on Discord. let's jump back into the video, guys. Oliver Bjorkstrand continues to be a very intriguing fantasy player. I liked him a lot in Columbus, and I like him even more in Seattle now that he's playing a career high in minutes. He continues to be that elite shot volume shooter that we've seen in the past, very similar to Nikolaj Ehlers, where Bjorkstrand's always within the top 30 or 40 shot volume player at the end of the season. And that's what we've seen so far this year. 182 shot attempts so far this season through 30 games, the 20th most in the NHL. His minutes so far this season are looking up, plus 2.5 minutes from what we saw last season. And he's playing a line 1, power play 1 role on a Seattle team that seems to be desperate for offense. I know just last night he had a very good night, so we're going to see that roster percentage start to go up. But what I like from Bjorkstrand here is even though he's attempting a lot of shots, the shot rate just hasn't caught up to what his career numbers are. He's currently at a 45% shot through percentage rate, which is pucks that go to the net. Do they actually make it to the net? Where he's a career 55.5% shot through percentage player. So we can only expect the shot rate to improve as long as he's getting attempts to the net, as long as he's playing good minutes. We can expect Oliver Bjorkstrand to be that productive fantasy player that we've seen in the past. So in October, he was off to a cold start, 2.1 shots per game, playing around 15 minutes per night. Since then, his minutes have increased to 18 plus per night and 3.1 shots per game over the last 20 games. He's trending upwards. I can expect to see this roster percentage start to go up to around the 50 and 60% mark. So you definitely want to get in very early on Bjorkstrand, especially in those 10 to 12 team leagues where he should be available. This is a guy with potential to score 30 goals each and every season due to his very elite shot rate. And right now, the Bjorkstrand Gord Tolvanen line has a 59.7% expected goals for percentage, which is the 5th best of any line in the NHL. They also don't allow a lot of chances, so this line is dominating offensively. Bjorkstrand's getting a ton of good looks in the top power play unit. This is definitely a guy you want to be rostering on your 10 to 12 plus team leagues. Another very unfortunate injury to a guy that I own in a bunch of leagues. Charlie McAvoy has recently been out for the last couple games and officially has been placed on IR. And for right now, this opens the door for Hampus Lindholm, exactly like we saw last season, to step into that line 1, power play 1 role. Now, I'm very surprised to see his roster percentage up at 50%. I know he was strong last season. Very good in the plus minus category, but his peripherals are just lacking a little bit, and he hasn't been too good this season. But hopefully he still is available in some of your competitive leagues where you can now scoop up a defenseman that's going to be playing big minutes in a line 1, power play 1 role on a very, very strong Boston Bruins team. So I went back and looked. McAvoy returned November 10th of last season. He missed about 14 games, and in those 14 games that Lindholm played in, he averaged 24 minutes and 20 seconds time on ice, 14 points, 4 goals, 10 assists, 4 points on the power play, so he was at a point per game pace, 27 shots, 19 hits, 13 blocks. Like I mentioned, the peripherals are not as exciting as I hoped to be for a lot of defensemen, but still the point upside is definitely there when he's playing in a very high leverage role on a very strong Boston Bruins team. Now, I don't need to speak to how good the Bruins are this season because if you've watched any hockey, you know that this team dominates night in and night out, but they do have the 9th most efficient power play where Lindholm is going to step in now and play and quarterback the top power play role, and they're a top 7 offensive team in almost every single offensive category. They also don't allow a lot of chances and a lot of offensive zone time for the opposing teams, meaning Lindholm's going to be playing in a very, very strong role for the next little bit. Now, there's no timetable for the return on McAvoy. It should be relatively soon than later, but for right now, this is definitely someone you want to be trying to roster given the current situation he's going to be playing in. He's a must-have player in 10 to 12 team leagues. There's always questions around defense, so definitely let me know in the comment section below what defense you need to get rid of to roster Hampus Lindholm in the short to medium term. Charlie Lindgren has been one of the biggest surprises in net this season. As I always say, goalies are a complete mystery, so you never know when they're going to implode or whether they're going to succeed. But for Charlie Lindgren right now, his numbers just speak to how good of a goaltender he's been this season. So for right now, Kemper's returned back to the lineup. It seems like they're splitting 50-50. Lindgren did start last night and was pretty solid in a game against the Philadelphia Flyers. But right now, he currently ranks amongst all goaltenders with a minimum of 10 starts, a 965 save percentage on unblocked shots, the 3rd best in the league, an 11.1 goals saved above expected, the 3rd best, a .929 save percentage, 3rd best in the league, and a 2.39 goals against average. This is a guy that's just 31% rostered. Many of us are struggling to find that right goaltender. Lindgren has been that goaltender over the last couple games. He's been extremely strong this entire season, But for me, I don't think this Capitals team is very good, and that at some point he's going to implode a little bit, and there's going to be a bunch of goals against due to the Capitals' lack of defense and their lack of offense. They're around the middle of the pack to maybe a bottom third type of team right now this season. But with Lindgren, you definitely have to be rostering a guy that's been this good to start the year. He's getting a bunch of saves, he's getting wins, and goalies, again, just have been very scarce to come by this season. So at a guy that's 31% roster that's been this strong to start the season, he's definitely worth rostering. I do know that Darcy Kemper's there and is likely going to be taking time away from Lindgren, but in the short term, definitely a guy you want to be rostering just in case he takes over that starter role and has a very strong second half of the season. In those 12+ team leagues, a guy I would be looking at immediately. Alexander Romanov has been very good over the last 10 games, and he is a really elite bangers defenseman, which is almost like a poor man's Adam Larson. His minutes over the last 10 games rank 6th most amongst all defensemen, 24 minutes and 51 seconds. He's been moved more into a line one role and has been killing a ton of penalties. We know the Islanders system, they're an extremely strong defensive team and they don't allow a lot of shots to the net. Right now with Romanov, the big point here is that his minutes are up +3 from last season. He was close to the 150, 150, 150 club with the shots, hits, and blocks. Someone like Jacob Trouba does that each and every season. And with Romanov, hopefully with the increase in minutes, it should only improve his rates in terms of shots, hits, and blocks. His current 82 game pace this season, 20 points, 150 shots, 200 blocks, and 105 hits. His hits are down quite a bit this season from what we saw last year. So hopefully this begins to turn around a little bit more, and then we can actually see a guy that could finish with 150, 200, and 150, which is extremely difficult to come by. Now, one thing I want to mention is that a lot of teams are just filled with power play one defensemen that don't have very strong peripherals, and sometimes it's good to round up that decor with a guy like Romanov that's going to be getting you 3 blocks, 3 hits, and 2 shots each and every night to try and fill out those categories for you. But he also has an extremely solid floor if you play in points leagues. He's a category covering defenseman, a very, very strong defenseman at just 7% rostered, likely available in those 14+ team leagues, especially ones that cover all categories. He's a must-add player in 12 to 14+ team leagues as he continues to play big minutes. Finally, the last player for this video, a more deeper league type player, Tyson Foerster of the Philadelphia Flyers. He is a big prospect in the Flyers system, and he's starting to pan out to be a very solid player. He has now moved into a line one, power play one role over about the last 2 weeks, and we've been monitoring him, we've been mentioning him on our Twitter, but now it's time for us to start talking about him. His minutes are up to about 17 minutes and 30 seconds per night since the start of November. In October, he was playing around 15 minutes, and over the last 10 games, he's played 18 minutes and 18 seconds, has 7 points, 27 shots on goal, and 45 shot attempts. He's also sits around 1 hit per game, so very strong numbers from a guy that's in a very strong role right now. At 6% rostered, you're in a deeper league, and sometimes you have to be rostering guys that are on the third line or play line 2, no power play role. But with Foerster at 6% roster, you're going to get a guy that's playing 18+ minutes per night in a line 1, power play 1 role. The points are eventually going to start producing for Foerster as he continues to play in a high leverage role. Right now, the Konechny, Couturier, Foerster top line for the Philadelphia Flyers has a 61.5% expected goals for percentage, the 8th best amongst all lines, a solid 2.75 expected goals for per 60, and a 1.73 expected goals against per 60. That should be goals against there, but still, with Foerster and his line, they've been producing extremely well. They're not allowing a lot of chances defensively, and again, as he continues to play in a much higher leverage role, if the points start to come, we can expect that roster percentage to improve. If he continues to play on a very good role like we're seeing, line 1, power play 1, you need to be rostering him in those 14+ team leagues. That will do it for the week 11 must-add players video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.